Alright, how's everybody doing today? Back again with another video for you guys. And today we're going to be doing my full review of the Moto X 2014, or the Moto X second generation 2014 model. But seeing as that's a long name, henceforth throughout this video I will just be referring to it as the Moto X 2014. So, before we get into it and start talking about the phone, I want to take this time to talk about the case that I also picked up alongside the phone. Now, this is the Unicorn Beetle case from a company called Sup Cases, and really, this is one of my go-to cases for any phones that I think I'm going to be hanging on to long-term, because you can see I have one for my Moto X Pure Edition. I have one for my Moto X 2014. I have one for my iPhone. So, really, in my opinion, this Unicorn Beetle case is the best and most affordable all-around protection for my devices. And that's why when I'm thinking about picking up something long-term and keeping it for a long period of time, I definitely think about investing in this case. So if you guys are going to pick up the Moto X 2014 and you're thinking about keeping it for a long period of time, I would definitely recommend that you pick up this case, because not only will it protect your device, but if you end up reselling your device somewhere down the line, it'll still be in like new condition, because this case actually protects every part of your device. So the links to where to purchase this guy will be down in the video description, as well as along with the links where to pick up the Moto X 2014. Alright, so just wanted to get that out the way. Now let me toss this off to the side. Now let's get to the star of the show. So jumping right into it here, the first thing I want to talk about with you guys is the overall build quality of the device. Now, I must say, from a build quality standpoint, Motorola did a great job with this one. This phone is actually constructed quite solidly. There's no rattling, there's no creaking of any kind, and it actually feels quite good in the hands with a nice solid weight to it. Now, it's not too heavy, but it's not too light. You're definitely going to notice that it's in your hands, or if you have it in a pocket without the case. So that's just a testament to the really good build quality and design that Motorola put into this phone here. So good job, Motorola. The build quality on this is actually pretty good. Now, moving on, the next thing I want to talk about with you guys is the screen and the display of this guy. So up front, dead center here, we have a 5.2-inch 1080p display, and I believe it has a pixel density of about 420. Oh, my mistake, 423, as you can see right there. And yes, it was 1080p, so you can see it right there. 1080 by 1920, so that's a full 1080p display right there. And overall, guys, if I could talk without coughing, I must say that the display on this guy is actually really, really good. Really good indeed. Sorry, looked like I went out of focus there. But in terms of display, I must say that the display gets quite bright outdoors, and I had no issues with the display whatsoever. And actually, if I crank it up to the max, you're going to see it's going to start messing with the exposure of the camera. But overall, the display gets quite bright, and it really is a good, solid display. So in terms of the display on this guy, it's pretty good indeed. Now, next thing I want to talk about with you guys is the overall hardware and software in this guy here. So let's start off by talking about the hardware. Let me turn this down because it's messing with my eyes. Put that back to how it was. Alright, so now let's talk about the hardware. Now, in terms of hardware in this guy, we have 2 gigs of RAM. We have 16 gigs of built-in internal storage. with no micro SD card expansion. We have one front-facing speaker, which also doubles as your receiver, and we have a 2 megapixel front-facing camera, which is capable of shooting videos up to 1080p in 1080p resolution. Across the back here, we have a 13 megapixel camera capable of shooting 4K resolution videos and slow motion that's at 1080p as well. That was also pretty cool. This is one of the Motorola devices that can also do 1080p slow-mo, which was kind of funny because with my Moto X Pure Edition and my Droid Turbo, those do slow-mo, but they only do it at 720p. So I thought that was kind of weird. But this one does slow-mo, and it does it at 1080p. So that's pretty cool. And also, you have your Ring LED flash there. And, yeah, you got your 3.5mm headphone jack. As I said, this does not have micro SD card expansion, so you just have your one SIM there, and it is a nano SIM, so you shouldn't have any problems there if you have a nano SIM. And now, in terms of software on this guy, it's running Android 5.1 Lollipop, which is not the latest and greatest, but in terms of software, I must say, guys, that overall it has been a very fluid experience. Fluid indeed. Now, I was trying to hold off on this review until I got the Marshmallow update, because one of my viewers actually requested that I review this device running Marshmallow, but I pretty much covered everything that I needed to cover on this guy, and I don't like to sit on my hands waiting for something. Y'all already know how I am. When I'm done getting a grasp on something and I feel like it's time to shoot a full review, I shoot a full review. But y'all keep watch on this video, because if I do get the Marshmallow update somewhere down the line, I will let you guys know in the comments. But really, all the Marshmallow update would do to this is increase the battery life a little bit, because you can't install a micro SD card, so you wouldn't be able to take advantage of the adaptable storage that 6.0 Marshmallow would bring to the table. But because 6.0 Marshmallow has the dose feature, you will be able to get better battery life. And spoiler, the battery life on this is already pretty good. But anyways, back to the overall software experience. It is actually very fluid, and I've had no issues with it. But I do want to point out, if you have a ton of apps open in the background, you will get some slowdown. Now, it's not enough to really take away from the user experience, but I did notice it, so I did have to point it out for you guys. But that pretty much covers the hardware and the software for you guys. Now, moving on, let's talk about the Wi-Fi in this guy. Now, in terms of Wi-Fi, this guy has 802.11 BGNN Wi-Fi and AC. So what does that mean? That means that you could take advantage of the 2.4 gigahertz band and the 5 gigahertz band. If you're somewhere with those with a router that supports that, or your home router supports that, you get some nice crispy speeds out of the Wi-Fi on this guy here. And now let me just pull it up so you guys can see. Where's that? Oh wait, wrong one. If I go to the right area, there we go. So here you go. Now, I was testing this at my grandparents' house. I'm still trying to iron out some of the Wi-Fi issues at my grandparents' house. So that's why you see some of these lower data speeds here, because my grandparents' house is big. So I'm still tweaking and messing with it, trying to get it just right. Now, in the interior of the house, they have some really crispy speeds, I'm actually very proud of myself. But when you start going to the outer edges, out by the pool area, that's where you start getting these slower speeds on the Wi-Fi. But in terms of Wi-Fi, as you can see, you get some really, really decent speeds. And this was at my home here, and you can see I got some really good speeds in terms of Wi-Fi with this guy. So now I just want to load up a little video, let you guys see how it performs. Now I already had this preloaded, so you can see it loaded up quite quickly, and there was nothing to it. And also, I'm gonna go ahead and let it play, so y'all get a little sample of the speaker quality as well. Alright, let's do this. Alright. Scrub through. Alright, so that was a nice little quick little Wi-Fi test for you guys, and you guys got to hear how the speaker sounds. But again, as I said, overall I would say that the Wi-Fi on this guy is actually pretty good. So as long as you have some decent home Wi-Fi, or you got some decent office Wi-Fi, you shouldn't have any issues with this guy. So in terms of Wi-Fi, you shouldn't have any problems. No problems whatsoever. Now next, let's see, what's next? Next, let's talk about the bands in this guy. Now, in terms of bands, this guy is unlocked, but it was originally with AT&T, but it does support all the bands for AT&T and all the bands for T-Mobile. And that's 2G, 3G, HSPA+, 4G, and 4G LTE. Now, in the interest of speed, I'm just going to go ahead and sound off the 4G LTE bands for T-Mobile and AT&T. Keep in mind, again, this is unlocked, so I've been using it on T-Mobile, and I've had no issues. But here we go with the bands. So as long as your carrier supports these bands and you pick this guy up and it's unlocked, you should have no issues. Now, you do get a little bit more bands if you have the European or Indian version of this guy here. But as I've said, I have the AT&T model, which was unlocked, and I've been using it on T-Mobile. So the following bands are Band 2, 1900. Band 3, 1800, Band 4, 1700 and 2100, Band 5, 850, Band 7, 2600, Band 17, 700. Alright? So those are the bands for AT&T and T-Mobile. Alright? Okay. And in terms of data speeds and things of that nature, again, as I said, I had no issues whatsoever. I've actually, I've had no problems with the data connections on this guy at all. None whatsoever. Now next thing I want to talk about with you guys is the Bluetooth in this guy. Now, I believe this guy has Bluetooth version 4.0, and I must say, in terms of Bluetooth, I had no issues. This is actually a very pleasant experience. I connected up headphones, I connected up speakers. I had no issues with the Bluetooth whatsoever. Alright, so moving on, the next thing I want to talk about is the GPS in this guy. And from a GPS standpoint, guys, I would have to say that the GPS in here is actually really, really good. Now, this locked on within fractions of seconds. I can't even say that it was 1 second or so, because it actually felt a lot faster than that. So, that being said, in terms of GPS, I've had no issues. I had no issues with turn-by-turn navigation or anything of that nature. It was actually a very enjoyable experience, and I was actually pretty happy with this, and this one fit into my car mount with no issues. So, from a GPS standpoint, if you pick this guy up, you shouldn't have any problems. Next. Now what I want to do is talk to you guys about the call quality and the speaker call quality. Now, in terms of call quality, taking regular phone calls, not on speaker calls, I would have to say that this phone performed quite well indeed, and I had no issues. And callers actually said that I came through very crisp and clear and was very loud. So, on regular phone calls, I had no issues. The same can be said for speaker calls as well. But with speaker calls, I did wish that it got just a tad bit louder. I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm getting old. It was still good, and I had no issues with it, but it just felt a little quiet for me, and I wish that it got a little bit louder. But other than that, the speaker call performance on here was actually really, really good. Now next. Alright, so this would usually be the point in the video where I talk about the gaming performance. Now, in terms of processors and GPUs, this guy has a Snapdragon 801 processor and an Adreno, I can't remember it off the top of my head real quick. Yeah, Snapdragon 801 and an Adreno, I want to say 330. Yeah. It was showing me more information. Now it's not really showing me too up, and it crashed, of course. Cause we're on camera, and you gotta crash on camera. Didn't crash any other time, but of course when I start recording, then it wants to crash. Right. The struggles. So, okay, it has an Adreno 330 GPU and a Snapdragon 801 processor. And in terms of gaming, I would say that I had no issues when it came to gaming on this guy. And now, I'm a casual gamer. I'm not a heavy 3D gamer. I tested games like Fruit Ninja, Asphalt 8, CSR Classic, casual stuff. And it performed without issues, okay? So if you're a casual gamer like myself and you pick this guy up, you shouldn't have any problems. Now, up next, the next thing I want to talk about with you guys is some of the benchmark scores that I got on this guy. Now, in terms of benchmarks, it didn't do anything wild or crazy, but it actually did okay. And y'all already know how I feel about benchmarks. It's just numbers, but I just like to show the raw performance. I think it's cool. But again, it's just numbers and it doesn't really mean much. What really matters is the right combination of hardware and software that equates to an overall smooth and good user experience. So, right here, this first benchmark, what I have for you guys is the Disco Mark benchmark. And really what this is a multitasking benchmark. It just takes a bunch of apps that I can decide, and it just cycles through them, and it does it about 5 times, and then it spits out an average score that it took the phone to cycle through all the apps. And this is basically just the apps that I use on a daily basis: Gmail, phone calls, Messenger, eBay, Amazon, Craigslist, Instagram, all that good stuff. Just pretty much all the apps that I use on a daily basis, and cycle through it. And it got a pretty decent score. And it ran the test about 5 times, and it came out with an average of about 17 seconds, almost 18 seconds. So, not bad. But I did notice while it was doing that benchmark that it had to reload the apps a bunch. And I think that's basically just due to the lack of RAM. Because keep in mind, guys, again, this guy only has 2 gigs of RAM. But for what it has, it still performed quite well. And, I wasn't mad at it. Up next, the next benchmark we have here is the Volemo multi-core benchmark. And you can see it scored pretty much upper middle pack with a 1936. So it's not the best, but it's not the worst. It's in the middle. And then we have the Volemo metal test. And again, lower mid pack, and it scored a 1518. Again, some very common scores for this 801 processor here. And this is the quadrant benchmark. And right here, let me let that focus. Having a lot of focusing issues today. It scored a 24,577, which is pretty good. And then that's the GPU. And then this is Geekbench 4. It scored a 941 on the single core and a 2249 on the multi-core. So nothing extravagant, nothing mind-blowing, just decent. And again, in Antutu, this one was pretty good. It scored a 60,680. Again, nothing too big, not bad, decent. And then this was the Ice Storm Unlimited test for 3D Mark. It scored at 18,608. And that's pretty good. That's rivaling the Moto X Pure Edition. So this one actually caught me by surprise. And again, I ran these tests multiple times, and it consistently kept scoring in that range, which is right up there with the Moto X Pure Edition. And you guys, this caught me by surprise because this processor is getting a little old in the tooth now, and for it to still perform so well is pretty good. But that's pretty much all of the benchmarks. And again, the benchmarks don't really mean anything. I just like showing the raw performance numbers, and I'm sure there are a ton of people like myself that like to see the numbers as well. That's why I include it. Now the next thing I want to talk about with you guys is the overall battery life and the charge times. Now, in terms of battery life, y'all already know I got my 3 different scenarios. I got my light use, I got my heavy use, and I got my moderate use. Now, with light use, I had no problems getting through a full day, and sometimes even having extra for the next day. With moderate use, and that was with a screen on time of about 3 hours. With moderate use, again, I had no issues getting through a whole day again. And that one was more with a screen on time of about 4 hours and some change, about 4 hours and 15 minutes. And with heavy use, and I ran this multiple times because I was actually astonished. With heavy use, I got about 6 hours, just over 6 hours of screen on time. And when I say heavy use, that means I was using the GPS extensively, taking phone calls, taking messages, text messages, YouTube, Pandora, GPS navigation. I was just getting it in checking my emails, all that good stuff, and I managed to consistently get about 6 hours to 6 hours and 15 minutes of screen on time. And I had to adjust the brightness a little bit. It's been pretty much at this level, so that was pretty good. And I was actually very, very surprised, guys, because the battery that's in this guy, it's nothing too serious. It's got a 2300 milliamp hour battery in this guy. And at first glance I thought, well, maybe the battery life wasn't going to be that great, but to my surprise, the battery life was actually really, really good. Now I gotta be honest with you guys, I'm a little spoiled, because after having my Blue Studio and being able to have battery life for days, and being able to consistently get about 10 hours or so of screen on time, and not having to worry about plugging in every day, a lot of these battery numbers that I report to you guys, they're good, but they're not as good as they can be. I mean, if Blue could do it, why can't any of the other manufacturers do it? But that being said, it's still a pretty good battery life. I mean, 6 hours is, it's an achievement, because you got phones out there like my Moto X Pure Edition, which with the same usage, and I can barely eke out 4 hours. So 6 hours is an achievement, and it's actually good. Keep in mind, as I said, I am spoiled though, because after using the Blue Studio and getting those battery life numbers, if you can't hold up to that, you kind of making me sad. But 6 hours isn't bad. So in terms of overall battery life, depending on what you're doing, keep in mind, because all of our usage and the things we do with our phone are different, but depending on what you're doing, you should have no problems getting through a full day. Now, in terms of charge times with this guy, I would have to say, with the standard charger that came with this guy, it took a while. It took about 2 hours from 0 to full. And from about 15 to full, it took moderately less, about hour and 45 for 15% to full, an hour for about 20% to full. So relatively good. Now, when I used the turbocharger, that got dramatically better. With the turbocharger, I was consistently getting full charges in roughly an hour, give or take. And it depended again on where it was at when I put it on the charger. So if y'all want to get those fast, crispy charging times, I suggest y'all run out and pick yourselves up a turbocharger. Now, it was funny because even with some of the rapid chargers that I have, it was still charging. When I used the rapid chargers, it was still charging at a normal rate. But when I used the turbocharger, it actually charged a lot faster. And one of the ways that I tested that is using this Ampere app, which measures how much the phone draws from the charger. So that's how I could tell when it charges faster and when it doesn't. But in terms of charge times, it wasn't that bad. As long as you remember to charge up at night, again, you should be good to go in the morning. And depending on what you do, you're definitely going to have battery life to get through the day. If you use it heavy, you might have to charge it one time through the day, so you might have to, one additional charge, so 1 to 2 charges. But if you're a moderate to light user, you're going to definitely get through the day and have battery to spare. So that pretty much goes over the battery life and the charge times. And now we're getting close to the end of the video. And did I skip over something? Oh, I did skip over something. My bad, guys. I forgot to talk about the cameras. I'm sorry, guys. It's been a lot going on. It's the holiday season. Alright, let's back up. Let's back it up. Now, talking about the cameras, you got your standard old school Motorola interface. It's very, very simple and straightforward here. No muss, no fuss. You got your slide wheel here where you can pull out your modes. And again, you can shoot in 1080p, 1080p slow-mo, and 4K. And then right here, keep in mind, if you like that widescreen like I do, you're going to have to sacrifice some megapixels and shoot in 9.7 megapixel mode for that widescreen. Now, if you could deal with the letterboxiness of the 4:3 aspect ratio, then you could take full advantage of your of all 13 megapixels. But then again, you got that full letterboxy mode going on here. But it is what it is. Now, another cool thing is that, let's say you're not in the camera, your phone is off, you see something going down, or you see something that look like it might make a good video, or you need to take a quick pic, just twist it like that. Launch it straight into the camera. No issues there. And then you like, oh, I took my picture I wanted to take. Maybe I want to grab a selfie to commemorate the moment. Twist it again, straight to the selfie cam. What's going on, guys? So, but in terms of that, the camera experience is very simple, very straightforward, and you should have no issues navigating it. You can control your flash, your HDR, all that good stuff.